Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to our Saddleback webinar this week. My name is Liz Mangus, Literacy Specialist with Saddleback Educational Publishing. We know where you are, for many of you, our school has already started. So if you're able to be on with us live, thank you so very much. As you are logging in, please make sure you locate your control bar, which is at the bottom of your web browser window. That is where you will find the chat, the Q&A, and the live transcript options. If you would like to take advantage of subtitles today, please click on live transcript and then select show subtitle. If you have any questions as you're listening today, if you find that you have some burning questions, go ahead and put those in the Q&A area. And that's either for our presenter today or for Saddleback. And then, of course, everybody knows by now how to use the chat, but this is where you primarily want to interact with us today. Don't forget that the chat on Zoom, if you want everybody to see what it is that you are sharing, you have to select panelists and attendees before you hit send, because if you just leave it on panelists, only a few of us will see it. So please be sure to select panelists and attendees on your comment before you hit send, and that way everybody who's joining us today will be able to see it. So Saddleback and Susan, we're both on Twitter. This is where you can find us. Now, Susan is a return presenter, so many of you have seen her here with us before. She's also on Twitter. Please make sure that you check us out, follow us, say hello, let everybody know that you joined us today for this great session, especially if you're teaching secondary newcomers. This is a great, very informative session for you today at the beginning of the school year. All right, let's check the chat and see who is here. If everybody could go to the chat while we're waiting, we'll get started in just a couple of minutes. Let me know, where are you joining us from? Has school started? Do you teach newcomers? Let's see who we've got. We've got Indonesia. Welcome. Welcome, Maria from Houston. Hi, Susan Owens. Richardson, Texas is here. All right. Solange is here from PA. Welcome. All right. Thank you, everybody. Becky from Mississippi. Yes, welcome. Long Island, New York is here. Now, you probably don't start for another couple of weeks up in New York, I would guess. September 1st, yes. Okay. Austin, I'm in the Austin area too, Delia, welcome. Week 3 of school already for Rebecca, wow. Gosh, you guys started back early. Wow, okay. Well, welcome everybody. Oklahoma, Los Angeles, this is great. Started last week in Oklahoma, all right. Well, welcome everybody. Former newcomer teacher and EL specialist Lindsay is in the house with us. Welcome. Welcome everybody. This is going to be such a great session. We're thrilled that you're able to join us. We know that sometimes these webinars, it's hard to find the right time for everybody to join live. We're just so thrilled that some of you are able to be with us here during the live broadcast. And for those of you catching the recording, I mean, obviously welcome to you too. We're just happy to have you join in on our webinar series, however you can. All right, well, let's officially get started. So our topic today is going to be supporting high school newcomers on the first day and beyond. Like, what are the basics of this? What are just some things that you can do to make sure that these students are feeling supported? And joining us to have this conversation today is Susan Patterson, and she is an ESL teacher and peer coach, and she has been teaching ESL for 10 years, coaching for 3. She holds a master's degree in instructional leadership with an emphasis in pre-K through 12 ESL. So she shares strategies for teaching emergent bilinguals on her blog, elllady.com. So that's ell-lady.com, and I'll put that in the chat for you. And she creates courses for teachers who are looking to strengthen their ESL strategies in their classrooms through My EL Mentor. When not teaching and coaching, she loves to read, write, and cook healthy foods that her family does not eat. I know all about that, so I feel you on that one. She has some great resources on her website, and her courses are also really great. I'll put that in the chat for you so you know how to access that. Okay, enough bragging on you, Susan. Everybody wants to hear from you, not me. So welcome. I'm going to let you take it from here.
All right, I'm so excited to be back. This is so much fun, and I just love connecting with all the other educators and people who support newcomers. So super excited. Let me go ahead and share my screen. I'm jealous of everyone that has like until Labor Day or like 3 more weeks left of break. Because that is not me. That is not me. All right. So I'm Susan Patterson. I'm again so happy to be here. And today I'm going to be sharing with you all some strategies and ideas that I've been exploring in my own teaching practice with my newcomers, and also through peer coaching with some of my high school teachers in a district that I taught. And newcomers are they're just my favorite. They really are. I love serving them. So before we dive into the slides, I want to share a strategy that I use with my newcomers that helps them understand the objective for the day. I annotate and I color code them, as well as I add in any translations. If they are recent arrivals, for academic vocabulary or words that are important for understanding the objective. And then I also have them choral read or echo read with me. So let's go ahead and look. Our objective is I can analyze strategies for supporting high school newcomers and their parents by reviewing example tools with images. So I'm going to be talking about a resource that I've taken images from with different tools that you can use, and you can find this on my website. There's also some other freebies, and I'll share that, or Liz will share that link at the end too. So let's look at our agenda. The session today is broken up into two parts: support for students and also for their parents. So we'll look at some common stressors for newcomers and some tools to alleviate some of the stress, as well as a couple of ways to continue supporting them throughout the year. So again, some of this presentation includes slides from a resource. It's called the Multilingual Learner Student Profile that I have available in my freebie section that you guys can get. You can go download it. And then for the second part, we'll look at parent engagement versus involvement and some resources you can readily use at the beginning of this year as well that are included in that same resource on my website. So let's start off with our students, with our lovely students. Before we begin, I'm going to play a video from a former newcomer that I had at my school last year. And actually that last year was his second year, so he was a newcomer the year before. And so after I play this video for you, I want you to think, what do you think could support this student as he arrived and in his first few months? So after you watch this, I just want you to be thinking about that. I'm gonna go ahead and play this.
Hi, my name is Joseph. I will be answering any and some questions. The first question is, when I come here, what is my preoccupations or why I'm nervous? The first time is the language. I was nervous for the language because I'm not talking English in that time, and the teachers, or how the teachers will be understand me.
Okay, so let's answer in the chat. So after watching this video, what do you think could support this student as he arrived and in his first month? So you can go ahead and use this sentence stem and take a minute to put your answers in.
Okay, I see slowing down my speech, explicit teaching of vocabulary, pairing him up, using a lot of visuals, providing translations. Great answers. Sentence stems to help him complete his thought. Providing response stems. Yeah, a lot of sentence stems. Pairing and weekly check-ins. Sensory, graphic, and interactive supports. Body language, gestures. Good one, gestures. Yeah.
Okay, those are all really awesome.
Great. Those are great.
Yeah, and we've got, definitely got some experienced newcomer teachers in the virtual space here. Those are all really good answers, and we're gonna actually probably touch on some of those as we go. So as we kind of are going through this presentation, I want you to keep Joseph or one of your own newcomers in mind. And just think about them as we look at some of the strategies and the resources provided. So if there's more responses coming in, I'll be kind of looking in the chat too, so you guys can go ahead and keep answering or putting your thoughts in, because those definitely help others that are watching as well. Okay, so who are our newcomers? According to the U.S. Department of Education, there are different kinds of newcomers. There is no one-size-fits-all category when our students arrive, but they do often come to us from unstable areas and with a variety of backgrounds and beliefs. So it's important to keep this in mind as they first arrive and as they start to integrate with our schools and with other students. Here are some terms that you may or may not have seen that describe some of our newcomers. Again, they're not all the same, and they all come with different assets to our classrooms. Some students may come with more formal English that they studied in their home countries, and some may not have been in school for some years. In my school specifically, we have gotten a lot of Venezuelan students, and they come with a lot of background with English. And then they quickly show growth. But this past year, I also got a student from Guatemala who came with Spanish and mom and had never used a computer before, and we were virtual. So it's important to know where our students are coming from and what they bring to enrich our classes, because it helps us support them throughout the year. For example, I knew that I needed to support my Guatemalan student with more technology help in her content classes. And I also knew that she may be relying heavily on translations at first, since she didn't come with much English. So whatever their background is, make a point to learn it and record any information in your student profile or in your notes section. Maybe you use Elevation or wherever else you record data to return back to, and to also share that with your content teachers too, because that also helps them understand when they're in their classrooms. So according to the National Child Traumatic Stress Network Refugee Services Toolkit, there are 4 main stressors for our newcomers and their families. They are trauma, acculturation, isolation, and resettlement. And the trauma can include war and persecution in their home country, displacement, migration, poverty. Acculturation can involve conflicts between new and old cultural values between the children and their parents, conflicts with peers due to cultural misunderstandings, figuring out how to fit in, which is a big deal in high school, right? And forming their new identities in their new homes. Resettlement can bring about financial problems for the families, difficulty finding housing, transportation, employment, and lack of community and resources. And then finally, children and families can experience isolation and discrimination and harassment, and therefore develop feelings of mistrust and not fitting in with their new home and location. And I think that we've probably all, if you guys are newcomer teachers in here, we've all witnessed that. So Understanding these core stressors really helps me focus my attention on ways that I can alleviate some of these feelings when they are with me and they're in our school. And I believe us as ESL teachers or ESOL teachers, we're usually the ones where students feel the most comfortable and we can give them a little more one-on-one attention. So what are some ways that we can support our students with these stressors that were mentioned? How do you support your own students who enroll in your schools? Let's respond in the chat with some of your ideas in this sentence frame. You can use one of the core stressors in that first blank there. So for example, you can say, I support my students with resettlement by, in your answer. So let's take a minute to see some of your ideas.
I think that's a lot to type, so it's going to take a second. Here we go. I support my students with trauma by incorporating SEL prompts during the class opener. Great answer. We support our students with settlement workers who help both students and families. Great. I support students with isolation by allowing them to work in groups and allowing them to engage with their classmates several times a day. Excellent.
These are some good ideas. I think it'd be good to have
Yeah.
a little running list of these too, if you've got a paper and pencil nearby.
Now they're coming in a little bit more quickly, so it's hard to keep up. Learning about their story so that they feel valued. I support my students with acculturation by directly addressing cultural norms in our lessons. Yes. Campus tours. Yeah, to help them feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
Great answers. Definitely some experienced newcomer teachers, as you mentioned, Susan.
Yeah, I love it. And I can always learn from everyone too. I love all of these. So I might be taking some screenshots of the chat here. So yeah, keep on, if you have more to add, please keep on putting them in the chat so that others can see your ideas and maybe use them if they haven't used them in their own schools. But I'm going to go to the next slide, but please feel free to continue typing those in. All right. So thinking of your answers, are there other ways you may support your students without realizing it in some of these categories? So for example, do you give them information on where to get eye exams? That came up a lot with my high school students, since this might be the first time their eyesight starts getting blurry. That did for me in high school. Do you have a bilingual mentor that you introduce to your students so they know where to go to talk? How do you contribute to acculturation in your classroom, which I think some of you guys already answered. So you may be addressing some of these basic needs without realizing it, but I think it's important to keep these in the forefronts of our minds so we can be more intentional about the support we give to make sure we're addressing them as much as we can. So on the first day, when a student gets to our school, the focus is on basic needs. What do my students need to feel comfortable and supported? What usually happens is, since I taught the newcomers as well as my coworker who I shared a space with, we would let them stay with us for a couple of days to get acclimated and comfortable and make sure that they had everything that they needed before we sent them off to their other classes. So this meant that we would connect them with a buddy who would speak the same language as them. We might have the buddy give them a school tour, which are some of these ideas you guys already put in the chat, and eventually assist them with walking them to classes when we would transition at the bell. And we would make sure that they received a schedule and other important information like bus cards and lunch numbers. And a newcomer kit is also helpful in giving them communication tools along with any visual support is as well. So this is one of the slides from that student profile resource. And what you could do in this Google Slides in the resource is just highlight each one as you go to make sure the student has received the items that they need in the first couple of days. I was in a WIDA state, so we gave the WIDA screener. But if you want some more specific diagnostic information, I found some for math and vocabulary just to give you a general idea of kind of where they're at. I know there's plenty of assessment tools out there though, and that you guys might already use. And here are some items you may want to include in your newcomer kits. These are great items to order in your supplies list if you have that available, or you might want to start a donors choose project. I found that the content area glossaries are very helpful, and they can also be used for state testing accommodations. The ones that we used were by Velasquez Press. We really liked those. So here are just some of the other items. You probably want to look at bilingual dictionaries as well, and headphones. But just a little kit that they can kind of carry around with them throughout the school day. And then this card, this is in the resource, but you could easily make one on your own and print it off for the students to keep and have all of their information just in one place. And then the student can also show this to any hall monitors or admin in the hallway if they are lost or they need help. I was at a pretty large school, so I know that buses in particular can be a little confusing to navigate. So it's easy for students to show their bus card or show a card like this one so that they can get to the right place, the right bus, they can get their lunch. And then the admin also can know their name and be on the lookout if their name may pop up in the future. So now the admin will know that they're learning English as a new language and they might need special supports or a translator. My personal fear, and something that I actually saw happen this past year, would be that if like an admin stops one of my students in the hall and they don't speak English, it might seem like they're coming off as disrespectful, but you know, they might not understand. So it's important to think of any way that students can be identified and to kind of coach students around that, like what to say when this might happen. You know, this might be where a communication tool could come in handy. Because we don't want them getting in trouble, you know, when it's just a language barrier. So here's an example of a communication tool that you can print off for students and carry around, at least for the first couple of weeks, to get started communicating with others in your building. You might even want to add a portion that says, I'm learning a new language and I speak blank language. I need a translator to communicate right now. Or you might want to coach them on that conversation and have them practice in your classroom. So I tried to add things in here that would come up throughout the day, like using the restroom or other basic needs. And here's a couple more conversation pieces for students. So again, I think that you can practice these inside of your own classroom so they can get more comfortable saying these. And then as the year progresses, it becomes more second nature to say these things. Maybe you can include them in a bell work or review these in a little exit ticket or do a little turn and talk practice with these. And it's kind of wonderful to see them, if you teach newcomers, to kind of see them start using this language and you're like, oh, it's really paying off, right? Like they're saying, please, can you repeat that? And it makes my heart so happy when they start using that language. All right, so we were mostly virtual last year, but this is great for in-person. This having a visual schedule to give your students. You can put the room number also for the teachers and the teachers' names on there. So this is helpful to print out and they can show it to a hall monitor if they're lost, but it's nice to have those visuals right there for them. All right, so the support for our newcomers is a year-long thing. It's not just in the first couple of weeks or months, and it's important to form the relationships when they first get here. But it's so important to continue supporting and advocating for them in their content area classes as well. So here are some simple ways that we can do this, that you can get started. I think a lot of us will be going back to in-person in the fall or at the beginning of the year, but I know that there's been some virtual schools popping up or independent study programs popping up. So here's some supports for if that applies to you or for when we may temporarily be virtual in the future. I don't know, who knows what might happen. So here's some supports if that applies to you. Creating virtual buddies or breakout rooms, providing bilingual support might mean like pushing in from the bilingual mentor, providing a place or an app like Talking Points is really great. I think someone said social emotional check-ins with students, regular check-ins with the content teachers, and just making sure that they're progressing as needed, or that they're doing okay emotionally. That could be bi-weekly, it could be monthly, however you feel like it is needed. In person looks really similar, but instead of using Talking Points, maybe you want to use Google Translate's conversation mode. I know it's not perfect, but it's good for those quick on the spot situations and when you need to relay important information. And then those conversation cards can also be printed out for students. All right. So let's think about some of the information that our content teachers might need to know. So first, I want you guys to read that quote from Stephen Krashen and then reply in the chat with your answer using the sentence stem. So read that and then answer, why would our content teachers need to know this information? So just take a minute to read and reply.
Okay, Laura says they might assume that silence means the student is not following or absorbing the information. Amy Wu says body language and visuals are essential. Definitely. Okay, I don't want to insert my opinion. I want to, okay, here we go. Because if students are not responding, it doesn't mean they are not learning. All right, silent period. That's it, the silent period. Listening develops first. Thank you, Jill. Passive language skills are often developed much sooner than active or productive language skills. Right on. See, this group, they know what's up.
You guys already know.
Yeah.
If Carly is still in here, I still laugh at the person said using gestures is so important. And I remember Carly was presenting and I was watching her and she said, I literally comprehensively input my face. Like we're all like using gestures with our face. Like it's like we're on the drama team.
I remember that. Yes, I remember that was funny. Solange says they may be able to reflect on their questioning strategies and intentionally invite nonverbal responses. Totally. Yeah. It's always good to be able to give our content teachers some practical ways to approach their newcomers that they may have.
Yeah, practical and easy. That, you know, these things are not difficult. I think it's just communicating those to them. But yeah, I think it's important that our content teachers know that they're working really hard, even though it's not visible. So I think they need to be aware of their language proficiency levels. They need to know that they're newcomers and that they're still developing the 4 language domains, and it takes time for this to happen. So yeah. Okay. So they need to know their scores from the intake assessment. They need to know their language goals, what they need to be practicing to get to that next level. They need to obviously know the scaffolds they can implement and any other strategies so that our newcomers can access the grade level content. Because they just need the appropriate scaffolding in place. So here's just a little visual of a slide from that resource that you can put your scores in if you want to share it with teachers. You might already have something in place for that. And here's some high yield scaffolds that our content teachers can really easily use that I think most of you guys have said in the chat even. So this is not like a full list, but these are things that can be easily implemented in the content teachers' lessons. I put cognates at the bottom. Some teachers might not know about cognates, but I think just like letting them know that that is a way that they can assist their newcomers, and they can possibly learn some new language along the way too. So I'm not sure about how much you guys are still using from the virtual elements from last year, but of course, making sure they know how to implement the immersive reader or translations in the PowerPoint, I think it can still be valuable. And of course, visuals and gestures, facial expressions, TPR, color coding. So this checklist also, it's a freebie on my website. You can pick that up too if you would like it. Here's some other tips from Jenna Echeverria for making our content comprehensible. And these are some of the basic things that we can do and that content teachers can do. So they're adjusting your speech, making sure that you're explaining things clearly, and just using those variety of scaffolding techniques for your students. So that's where you can make sure that you pass along some kind of scaffolding cheat sheet to them that they can easily, maybe they can put it up on a little board that they have next to their desk to easily refer to. So thinking back to that crash and quote, it's also important for our teachers to know that newcomers can engage with the content, but their output may not be language. It can also be these things. So on the next couple of slides, we'll look at some specific instructional strategies that can be used with our newcomers in our own classrooms and our content area classrooms. So their output might just be that they're circling, they're sequencing, they're categorizing, they're creating an image. I love to use Canva for that. Or they're creating a model. Maybe they're gesturing to you, or they're annotating or highlighting. So I think it's important for our teachers to know that. Instructional supports and scaffolds for newcomers, they are stepping stones. So these strategies are stepping stones into developing language. So here's our first one. Having students choral or echo read is a stepping stone into speaking. It can be done with whole group or during partner reading. For some reason, my high schoolers have always liked echo reading better. Maybe it's because it seems like too little kiddish to do choral reading. I'm not sure. But I've found that it's helpful for them to echo read and in small chunks. And then as the year progresses, we make those chunks a little bit longer, you know, as we go. So Dr. Calderon says that newcomers can start reading from day one. It's just going to probably look a little bit different. So our content teachers should know that this can be done in any content area to engage our newcomers and boost their confidence. So she says that as a partner reads, a newcomer can shadow read, and then the newcomer can shadow read with partner B. So the shadow reading, it can start off with maybe they're just mouthing, you know, the words, or they're just kind of whispering quietly. And as their confidence grows, I find that their voices become a little bit louder, and then they start reading on their own, and it's like, it's amazing to watch. Another strategy is teaching newcomers to annotate. So this may mean you highlighting some text for them at first to read and giving them only a couple symbols to label those highlighted parts. So for example, a star for the main idea or the central idea, and a heart for something that they loved or that stood out to them, and then building on that. So keeping it really simple at first. They can also write about the text with sentence stems or frames and draw what they read in the margins on the side. Whatever the text is, just making sure it's chunked into little smaller pieces and then summarizing it frequently along the way with visuals. That's a stepping stone to reading and writing in the target language. And last, write-arounds. So newcomers can be engaged just by copying the sentences. And I think some teachers might be like, but wait, copying, right? But yeah, that's a stepping stone to writing, just letting them copy. And then they can step it up to using sentence stems and phrase, and then to ultimately writing their own sentences. And using strategies along the way, but this is a good way to start, one good strategy to start with writing. So we're going to wrap up the session by talking about support for our newcomer parents. We still have some time, so I'm not fully wrapping it up, but this is the second section here. So if we have any, I kind of want to pause, Liz, and maybe see if we have anything that anybody would maybe want to add, maybe for strategies that they have found that passing on to their content teachers has been helpful. So maybe just a minute or two, if you want to add anything in there for us to learn from you and to kind of add to our list of strategies.
Yeah, I'm interested in that too. I love your list of strategies. I think it's so important to have a list of kind of concrete things that work that you can then pass on to content area teachers as well. So definitely out there, if you have anything to add, go ahead and drop that in the chat for everybody's benefit. And if anybody adds something, I will hop back on and let you know. I think people may be thinking about it. So.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'll go ahead and go to the parent portion, and then yeah, we can always return back at the end of the session too. All right. So this is a visual from ed.gov's newcomer toolkit, and it really kind of helped me see the different stages our parents might be going through. And it was a good basis to think about ways to support them. So they may come to us as a cultural survivor, and then they gradually move up to a cultural learner, to a cultural connector, and ultimately to being a cultural leader. So let's respond in the chat with some of your ideas first by using this sentence stem. So the question is, how might you assist your parents in moving from cultural survivor to a cultural leader? So you can use that stem right there. Some things I might do are,
All right, we've got some action going on in the chat. People are still dropping strategies in there from the last. Okay. Oh yes, building relationships with parents. Absolutely.
Yeah, just starting there to get to know them, I think. Yeah.
Referring them to adult ESOL classes or having them volunteer in the school.
Mm-hmm.
Introducing them to support services. Ask parents to come into the class or the school. New arrival night, having an event.
Yeah.
Speak to the parents about the school in the U.S. It kind of just explain to them how school works in the United States. Calling them to celebrate student progress. Wonderful answers.
Yeah, those are good. I know, I think a lot of times we call them for the bad things, but I think it's good to call them for the good things a lot. Yeah, those are good. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next slide just for time here. So when we're thinking about how to move our parents and guardians from survival mode to being a leader, we also, I think, need to think about how we're engaging with them. So are we really engaging with our parents or just involving them? What's the difference? With parent involvement, we are just letting our parents know how we're doing things, but with engagement, we're inviting their input. And this to me is the true meaning of connecting with our parents and assisting them with being leaders within the parent community. So I want to share this brief video and answer Do you think this is engagement or involvement? So we're going to watch this video from Karen Maup. Go ahead and press play.
So in the book, what we try to do is to share stories that both teachers and parents and other school staff have shared with us that are examples of powerful partnerships. So for example, Eileen shares a story in the beginning of the book about Jorge, and we've changed the names of the students, obviously, but she talks about how when Jorge came into her classroom, how he was not reading at grade level. He was, in fact, well behind that. And with the collaboration with his mom, who came to, I guess, a parent-teacher conference in tears. And I guess Jorge was with her. They were in tears because they both realized that he was behind. And so Eileen talked to the mom about, what are some of the things that you're already doing? What are the things you can tell me about Jorge? How can we work together in partnership to try to get him where he needs to be around his reading? Well, lo and behold, because of the relationship that they built, the way that they shared information, the way that Eileen was able to share with mom about what are some of the things that you could be doing at home, and the mom was able to share her knowledge of her son with Eileen. And I think that's really important, because when we talk about partnerships are reciprocal, they're two-way. And I think too many times in schools what we do is we talk at our families and we don't listen to what they have to say about their children. They have all this wonderful, what Debbie Pusher would call parent knowledge that we need as educators to do our jobs. And so through this partnership, lo and behold, by the end of the year, Jorge was able to read. He was making progress. He was excited, and mom really felt that her role had shifted in terms of how she was able to help support her child's learning. So that's just one of the many examples we have in the book, because we thought it was really important for people reading the book to hear the voices of parents and teachers and others, to show that yes, this can happen, to give people hope that they can actually replicate and execute some of these strategies in their own classrooms.
All right, so she's saying that the goal is partnership. Is partnership part of involving our parents or engaging with them? Go ahead and write in the chat. Is this engaging or involvement? You can just enter in the word, just one word. Engagement or involvement?
We've got one vote for engagement, both. I got both, getting lots of engagements.
Yes.
And a few boths.
Okay.
Partnership equals engagement. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I see most of them say engagement.
Yeah. So it is partnership. I don't know who said that, but partnership equals engagement. Yes. So here are some other things that we can, or some other examples of engagement versus involvement. And I don't think one is better than the other. I think we just need to make sure that we're engaging with them and forming those partnerships too. So, and some of you guys may already be doing these things, like sending newsletters out. But I want you to think about, when we're thinking about both sides, which would assist parents into being more cultural connectors and leaders? And then which side may help those who are cultural survivors and learners? So again, I want to point out that there is a place for involvement for sure, but I think the ultimate goal is forming those partnerships. Do you see some items that may help your parents still in survival mode? You can put those in the chat too. What would help them with being in that survival mode?
So Susan, we have somebody who would like clarification on the term cultural survivor, which I feel like you addressed maybe a little bit earlier.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's a slide that has that kind of that pyramid of how parents, when they come here, um, like how they might feel and how we can kind of characterize them as we're thinking about the stressors, if that makes sense. The stressors when they get here. So when they have like those, when they first get here, they have more of those stressors. They're trying to find housing and they have more of a language barrier. And they're forming a community still. They don't have their community from where they came from. So I think that kind of encompasses of what a survivor, a cultural survivor is. And then we want to do things to help them move up and become leaders in their community ultimately. And that actually happened with Joseph, the student in the video earlier. He would tell me a lot of stories about his mom. And I talked to his mom through talking points, but she kind of came here in survival mode, and now she's kind of in her second and third year. She's thinking about going to law school, and she formed a meetup for other Colombians that to kind of help them with forming relationships. So I was super proud of her for that. So I hope that does that answer the question?
I think so, but she says yes. Okay. And then also some people were putting some ideas down. Having a family liaison who speaks the home language would be great. And Maria says a survival parent would benefit from guidance on things like lunch forms, vaccines, clinics. Sounds like, tapping into some of those community resources, getting the lay of the land, that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. Just giving a calendar, right? Telling about school events. Yeah, and then I think as we're looking more at engagement, engaging using talking points has been like a game changer for me, to be honest. Like I feel like I had to rely on my bilingual mentor a lot, but then I felt like I could really make that personal connection with them. And I think there's other apps too, but that's just one of them. So I want to share just a couple of slides from that resource to help the parents move out of survival mode and become more cultural learners. And then as they transition into their new lives, some of this you guys mentioned, adult English class information, maybe information on uniforms, where to buy them, information on emergency drills. I know that one of my Chinese students last year, we had to kind of call home and let the parent know what happened, because I think she was confused about our fire drill, so just little things like that we might not even think about from their point of view. So this is another slide that you could print off or you could make on your own, and then you could email it or hand it to parents. It has essential information like the school name, phone number, teacher's name, principal, bilingual mentor name, just so that they know who to contact and how to get in touch with them. And then here's a conversation tool that you can give to parents. You could email them or hand them out. So just some general stuff like, I have a question about grades. When do report cards come out? What days do students stay home this quarter, right? Like what holidays? So just some general talking points there for them. So now it's time to really wrap up, but I want to look at one more video from my newcomer of mine. So she wasn't a newcomer last year, but this was the year before she was, and she was with me. So let's answer the question kind of to ourselves. What do you think could support this student as she arrived in her first month? So it's the first question when we looked at Joseph's video. Did you get any new ideas that you want to use in the fall? So I'm going to go ahead and press play. This video, I'm going to maybe turn it up a little because she talks a little bit soft. So I'm going to turn up the volume here. Here we go.
My first days of school were the hardest. I felt so lost and scared. And my biggest concern was the language because I didn't speak English. So I remember I thought that I wouldn't be able to do my work and that I would fail my classes. But something that really helped me and made me feel more comfortable was my ESL class. I had some classmates who spoke Spanish, and it really makes you feel better to be around people who understand what you're going through. And finally, one thing that could have helped me more is practicing my speaking more often.
All right. I love her, so sweet. I love my newcomers so much. So I hope that you can take some of these ideas. I think a lot of us are on the right track, and you guys shared some awesome ideas. I hope that maybe you could find some new ones that you can take, either from me or in the chat, because we all learn from each other. This is such a special group, our newcomers, and they play such an important role in our society. So let's support them as best that we can, whether it's with you supporting and helping them directly, or it's you helping others in your building understand how to support them. Because if you don't come across newcomers in your classes, some teachers don't. They might have one or two. It depends on your population, but I think we all succeed when we know how to support them. So that is it. I am done with my presentation. I have the link to the lessons and freebies if you guys want to go and download and check them out. And Liz, if we have any more questions or suggestions in the chat.
We do. There were a few ideas that people, as they had time to think about different strategies that they use and that they could share with content area teachers, they did put those in the chat. And I just wanted to share those yes, I will put the link to her website in the chat for you. I just wanted to share those for those of you who may be watching the recording and won't necessarily have access to the chat. So color-coded response STEM cards to help students understand agreement, disagreement, how to phrase those types of things, and having them color-coded, I think, is a great idea. Explaining students' backgrounds to the teachers, and by that, I think this was Jill who mentioned this. It was a level of formal education, their proficiency in their first language, their literacy levels. Can they read and write in their first language? So providing that background knowledge, I think, is definitely something that would be helpful for the content area teachers as well. And then another person brought up 7 steps to a language-rich interactive classroom, which is a book by our good friends at Seidlitz Education. Great strategies. I think that's where I found that QSSA strategy, which is very nice for structured conversations. So we always encourage people to check that resource out as well. So see some excitement in the chat here. Okay, let's go ahead and put your website. So that is the link to Susan's website there in the chat. And then she's got a lessons and freebies section there where you can access this material. Is that right, Susan?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
good.
I'm reading the chat on my phone. I just want to call out, I love the idea from another fellow, Susan, to ask the parents to see if they would like to add to their ESL newsletter. I love that, including them in that. I think that's great.
Great ideas. This is such a fun group. Okay, we've got, look at this.
You have to go scroll down. Okay.
So many people are sharing such great resources in the chat. So
great.
All right, well, before I forget, let me do this. Let me go back here and remind everybody what is coming up next week. So for next week's webinar, we are going to have Kathy Perez back with us. Kathy was on, oh gosh, not that long ago, a few months ago. So much energy, so engaging, so entertaining, and so informative. This is going to be a great, and actually this one was specially requested as a result of the last webinar she did with us. So her topic is going to be self-regulation skills to help students succeed. Keeping in mind that a lot of students are coming back into brick and mortar setting and have experienced a lot in the past year and a half and may need some help kind of balancing and working with their emotions and trying to get back into the groove of schooling. And so she's going to have some great concrete strategies for us, and she's going to have a good time and make sure we all have a good time as she typically does in her session. So much fun. So definitely join us. This is next Thursday at 12 o'clock Pacific, 3 o'clock Eastern. You can register on our website, or you will be receiving an email prompting you to register, and we would love to see you there. Let's see. Oh, of course, I always have to let everybody know what's new with Saddleback. This is now available. This is our Go ELL Literacy Library. This is our tween version. So these are content-focused genres. I did a whole webinar on this back in May. Check out the YouTube channel. But basically, why are these things great? Accessible for our newcomers and beginners, written around content area topics. So we get some good, like, juicy vocabulary in there as well. And lots of visual supports. They're beautiful books. And they're just great. So check them out. I can't say enough about them. Okay. Questions and comments. I don't feel like we had any lingering questions, but I will pause here for a minute in case anybody has something that we missed. There was a question that came in via registration that I kind of wanted to put out there. It's a great question that I don't know anybody has like an easy answer to, but I always like putting this out there to this crowd because I think we can kind of put our heads together. So, okay, Letitia says, someone asked if you could restate the title of the book that was mentioned as being a helpful resource. Did you mention a book?
Oh, was it the seven? Oh, what was it?
Oh, the 7 steps.
Yeah.
Yes. So that is 7 steps to a language rich. I just know it as the 7 steps. So I always have to look. Language rich, interactive classroom. Very good resources. A very, very good resource. Okay. So the question I had in mind, I just want to float it out there. This would be a great webinar, by the way. If anybody wants to come on, do a panel committee, we'll do a webinar on this. One of the biggest stressors, I think, for teachers in a situation with secondary newcomers is those who are in kind of an organizational situation for whatever reason, where they have newcomers, but then they also have some intermediates, they might have some long-term English learners thrown in, and they're all in one sort of class period. And so that is very challenging. So if anybody has any resources, ideas, tips for the best way to kind of balance, making sure everybody gets their needs met, that would be phenomenal. And I would love to do a webinar on this too, if anybody is very well practiced in having a wide range of language proficiencies in their class, and they have some good, like, here's how I do my small groups, or here are the resources I use. Ashley, right? Yeah, Ashley says, I would love to hear this. I would too. I think this would be an awesome webinar, even if it's like 2 or 3 people. Yeah.
So this is a question in the group that I have that that comes up from a couple of different teachers, and that I've reached out to see if I can kind of interview someone on this topic, but I won't. That's all I'll say about it. But I feel like there's a lot of people on this boat, and I feel like a good way to start for ESL or content teachers, and please anyone chime in, but I'm thinking the best way to kind of start is to have your language objective and maybe have like 2 different, and then have like here's our newcomer scaffolds and here's our intermediate, or, you know, it depends on what levels you have in there. And then making sure you're pairing, you know, obviously the newcomers with a buddy, and using any scaffolds and whatever groups you have. But I feel like the language objectives would be a good place to at least start. I don't know. What do you think, Liz, or anybody in the
Lindsay says tiered response stems, which I feel like is in the same lane as what you're talking about. And it's all kind of in the planning, right? It's what's the language objective, which scaffolds work for which language proficiency level, loosely speaking, right? and how can we structure our activities and incorporate these scaffolds accordingly, as well as you said, pairing students in ways that are complementary and to each of them as well. So also Lindsay says, providing teachers with rubrics from evaluating students based on language proficiency. Okay, I would love to, I just wanted to float this out there because this is a topic that I would love to do a session on.
Yeah, that's a big one.
And it comes up a lot, yeah.
Language expectations, the WIDA 2020. Yeah, so I just moved to a state that's not WIDA, and I didn't get a lot of that WIDA updating. So that's good to know, Amy, that's good to know.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. Feel free to, yeah, Amy, that's a great idea. I do have a contact at WIDA that I can inquire about that. Yeah. Thank you for that suggestion. And if anybody, while they're doing the dishes tonight or cooking dinner, if they get a great idea in their head about who to have on a Saddleback webinar for something like this, go ahead and email me. Because like I said, I would love to build on this. It's such a great question. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Don't forget, Saddleback is wherever you are on social media. You can find us, say hello. We always love to hear from you. And thank you for all of the work that you do. We will be sending out an email probably tomorrow with a link to the recording as well as the certificate of attendance. So for those of you looking for that, you will definitely get it in your inbox. All right. Thank you again, Susan. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we will see you all next week. Take care.